What's your biggest retirement question? Whatever it is, you'll find answers here. It's time for Ease into Retirement.
Welcome into another edition of Ease into Retirement. Thank you so much for tuning into the program with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California, and myself, your host, Mark Killian, along for the ride to talk investing, finance, and retirement. Tom's got 30 plus years of experience in the financial sector, and a great team of advisors and support staff creating a seamless experience for clients to help you with your strategies, with your pain points, and getting that plan in place and underway. You can get that complimentary written retirement blueprint of your very own by simply calling 855-526-1600 and stopping into one of the offices and getting started with the team. 855-526-1600 to visit with them in Anaheim or Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, or San Diego. Of course, they can meet with you on the phone or on Zoom or whatever the case is, but take some action for yourself and get started today with your retirement blueprint. 855-526-1600. Mr. Mosley, sir, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Listen, I've had a great week. One of the events we had this week, I had a couple of people, two different couples come up actually after it was over. And both of them said, and some of you are out there and listening on the radio, you're like these people. They say, we've listened to your show for at least 2 years, one of them said. And another one said, I think it's been 3 years that we've been listening to the show. And they finally came to an event and they're coming in to meet with us. So, you know, if you're out there and you've been, you know, Myrtle, George, we should go ahead and get in and meet with one of those advisors at Mosley Wealth Management. Now's the time to do it, you know, and those two couples are coming in and they've been listening forever. Some of you have been listening a long time. Some of you are listening for the very first time. Stay with us. We try to do everything we can to make our show different, in that we try to educate you, not just beg you for appointments, even though that's what we're talking about right now in the beginning. Come in and meet with us. We can help you build a retirement blueprint. And just a shout out to those people who came in this week and those of you who need to come in next week, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we got some good content to cover. We try to have fun here as well as educate, to Tom's point. And we certainly appreciate all the folks that tune in and come out and attend the events or give a call and get on the calendar. So let's dive in, Tom. Let's get going here. We're going to break this up over the next two segments here. We're going to do a little overrated and underrated.
Overrated.
That's right.
Remember when the crowd starts shelling that when somebody's losing, you know?
Yeah, true. This is true. For the Myrtles out there.
That's right.
It's funny you say that because actually that's my wife's grandmother's name was Myrtle. So
exactly.
It's a good old Southern name right there.
I used to date a girl named Myrtle, but they just shortened her name to Myrt.
Myrt, yeah,
and then they called her Myrt the Flirt. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we didn't date very long.
I got you. Well, listen, maybe it was overrated. So that's my transition. Let's jump into some items in the financial services world, Tom, that might not always be all they're cracked up to be. Give us some things to think about. This is going to sound weird. Tax advantages. How can tax advantages be overrated?
Well, tax advantages can work for you, but they could be overrated sometime. Now, we talk on this show all the time about tax advantaged. We talk about tax advantaged plans, tax advantaged investments. We talk about putting your money as best you can into a Roth situation because it generally is an advantage to you from a tax standpoint. But there are also some times where tax advantages are overrated, and that's what you ask about. So when you take advantage and, you know, people are always wanting to defer tax, or they're trying to avoid tax, or they're trying to create deductions. Those are good things, but in the pursuit of that, you can put your money sometimes into things that they just don't perform as well, or you get into them and you're not really certain about them. Like one guy came to me one time, this was 8 or 9 years ago, and for the tax advantages, he went into an irrevocable trust with most of his money out of a big business sale. Well, he's regretted that he went in about 10 years ago, and he's regretted it for about 9 years and 360 days, if you understand, because it's irrevocable. It's a great tax advantage, but it's irrevocable. So when you're looking for, something that's tax-free, okay, what's the catch to it? Because if something's tax-free, it's got to have some other side that is not so advantageous. When you look at a product, or you look at an investment, you've got to look at every product and every investment, and you've got to ask yourself, what are the advantages of this and what are the disadvantages of this? And if you're working with a broker and they say, well, there aren't any disadvantages of this, well, raise the white flag, okay, and say, wait. There is no perfect investment. They're all good for some things and they're all not good for other things. Like an annuity. An annuity probably has the worst name of any financial product in the industry, but an annuity is the best thing in the world if you want guaranteed flows of income for the rest of your life, for the rest of your spouse's life, if you are married and you choose that option, even after you run out of your money. But there's a lock-in, and the taxes are deferred on that, so that when you start bringing the money out, you're going to get taxed on the growth within that. So tax advantage. Let's go get something that's tax advantaged. It might have a little bit of a poison pill in it, that the reason it's tax advantaged is because, it's got some pain that's coming somewhere down the road. And nobody goes out, and be careful for this, because I've often heard people say, because that CPA, God rest his soul, God bless their soul, they're looking for every tax deduction they can get. So I've got a lot of people who say, well, you got that mortgage, you might as well keep it for the tax deduction. Well, the tax deduction is still probably not going to offset the interest in most cases. So you've got to understand the interest you're paying on that mortgage, whereas if you go ahead and pay it off, you can go ahead and pay that mortgage off and not have that interest payment, and it'll probably offset the tax advantage. So you need to understand, and here's another thing, Mark. There are big wirehouse companies that, they advertise on the golf matches on the Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And you'll see them today. They don't work with people on taxes, but one of the main pillars of what we do at Mosley Wealth Management is to make sure you pay as little as you're legally required to pay in taxes. That doesn't mean that every tax-advantaged product that's out there we think is great, because every product, as I've said, has some positives and some negatives, and you need to be working with somebody who's up to date on taxes enough to give you advice, not just do your 1040 looking back on what you did last year, but looking forward into the future. What's going to put you in a tax-advantaged way that's not going to be a poison pill down the road?
Yeah, I like that. And, as the saying goes sometimes, don't just get into something to let the tax tail wag the dog, right? You want to make sure that it's not the reason for the benefit or the reason for the investment, I guess. It's more like an ancillary benefit, right? So
I had a couple one time, they had $5 million in their two IRAs, 401ks, and they reached the point of Medicare, and they were very concerned. They were also into the required minimum distribution period, and they reached Medicare at 65, and they had to pay the highest Part D, which was right at $500 a month extra because of their income, because of what they had to take out of in required minimum distributions, that $5 million.
Gotcha.
And they were beside themselves because they had to pay $500 each for Part B of Medicare. And, they said, what can we do, Tom? Where can we get in a tax advantage situation where we won't have to pay that $1,000 a month? And finally, it all came down. I searched with all the experts that were out there, and I said, I tell you what you can do. You what's your favorite charity? You can give it all away. And they paused a minute, and they said, well, we don't want to do that. And I said, well, the alternative is pay the $1,000 a month for the extra Part B. So,
right.
So there's always a solution, but you might not like that solution just to get a tax advantage.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we're talking about some overrated things in the financial services world. Again, not all the time, right? Just sometimes they might not be all they're cracked up to be. And so this one's going to sound weird too to the ear. Rates of return. Look, nobody's denying that we want to get good rates of return here, Tom, but again, chasing this is maybe not the best recipe for certain people depending on the time of life they're in.
Well, if you're 25 years old, you're saving for retirement. I've said it 100 times on this show. You're interested in growth. If you're 70 years old and you just retired, you're interested in your withdrawal rate. How quickly is it going away? And so a lot of people have learned how to play that game who are in my industry. They've learned how to play the rate of return game. Like if you had a 50% gain one year, let's take 3 years in a row, a 50% gain, and then you lost 50% the next year. We've done that twice since the year 2000. And then you gained 30% the next year. Well, if I average plus 50 and minus 50, that's 0, plus 30, and I divide by the 3 years, I'm saying, congratulations, Mark, you've averaged 10% gain. Now, if you do the math on $100,000, stay with me here, don't lose me. 50% gain, you went up to 150,000. 50% loss that second year, you went down to 75,000. 30% gain that third year, you went up to 97,500. Wait a minute. I started with 100,000. Yeah, that's an average of 10% rate of return. So you got to be careful about that rate of return. Always a rate of return doesn't mean you're making positive money. And so you've got to be careful for the numbers. And you also got to be careful about chasing that rate of return because, that baseball player who went 4 for 4 last night, they might go 0 for 4 tonight. So don't put all of your money on them getting the crucial hit. And it's the same way with investments. You cannot bank on a rate of return being the same year after year after year. If somebody hit a home run yesterday, they might take today off. So you got to be careful with that.
That's a great point. Sometimes if you're chasing 12 or 14 or 16% returns, but 9 or 10 drives the plan the way you need it to, why are you taking that extra risk, right? So lots of things to at least consider in those strategy conversations. Final one here, Tom, is commission-based investment accounts. Overrated?
Well, there's two kinds of accounts when you get to advisory services. There's fee-based, where it's usually an investment, and the big commercial is, you make more, we make more.
Sure.
Well, so does everybody in the world. And it's fee-based on the size of the pot, the size of the portfolio. And then there's commission-based. And commission-based usually are insurance products. And we find when you're really planning, and you're not just an investment company, and you're really planning with people for retirement, man, they need great advice on Medicare. Well, that's a commission-based product. When they need great advice on life insurance, sometimes that little burial policy that'll pay all the bills whenever they're gone so it doesn't leave a burden for their family. They need commission-based products when it comes to long-term care to cover in case you do go into a nursing home, those kind of things. Some people see the advantage of having a commission-based product in an annuity that guarantees them lifetime income if it's an income annuity and it's structured the right way. So, what you really need is, you don't want to go that pendulum. You don't want to swing it all to the fee base, like we don't sell commission on rate-based products. Well, that means I can't help you on Medicare, long-term care, life insurance, annuities, those kind of things that you might need to pass off the risk of those things to the insurance company. So I think you need to look at both sides and not let some advisor, because they don't want to sell commission-based products or they don't want to sell just fee-based products, don't let their prejudice cause you to be prejudiced in the plan you put together. You need a plan that addresses both probably fee-based issues and as well as commission-based. So don't go all the way commission and don't go all the way fee-based. Make sure you see the value and the drawbacks of each one of those products.
All right, good stuff here on the first part of Ease into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management. If you'd like to talk about some pain points for your situation, reach out to Tom's team at 855-526-1600 and get yourself onto the calendar for that consultation conversation and that complimentary written retirement blueprint. 855-526-1600 or find them online at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's mosleywealthmanagement.com. Stick around. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some underrated items in the financial services world. We'll be right back. Back here for the second quarter of Ease into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you fine folks here in the Southern California area. His team of advisors and support staff waiting to help you with your retirement journey. They got offices in Anaheim, Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, and San Diego, and of course can have a phone conversation or meet you on Zoom as well, but you got to take that action for yourself. As I like to say every show, if you want some satisfaction, got to take a little action, to paraphrase old Mick Jagger there. Give them a call at 855-526-1600 for that consultation conversation, that complimentary written retirement blueprint. 855-526-1600. All right, Tom.
You kill me, Mark.
What's
Every
that?
time you say something like that, I want to break into song, and I can't sing that well. So I can't get no
That's right.
satisfaction. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Unless you call Mosley Wealth Management. Doesn't quite work. But all right, so let's talk about our underrated topics. We talked about overrated on the prior segment. Okay, I got a few things in the financial services world I'm going to give you that might be underrated. They don't get the love, Tom, that maybe they should. So we'll see if we can shower them with a little bit of affection here.
Hit me with your best shot.
Now look at him. I got him singing now. That's right. Pat wants a royalty check. All
That's right.
So liquidity. Let's start there. Why is this underrated? I mean, I think we all like a little liquidity in our plan. At least we hopefully do.
I think there's a couple reasons. I think when you first start saving, and because we get referred to a lot of 25 and 30-year-old people who are the children of the people that we're helping retire. And they say, can you help my son? And I tell them, yeah, we can help everything except overcoming their parentage. But, in a joke, I tell them that. But, we do try to help them as much as we can. And most of the time we go to them and we say, what are your goals? And they'll say, well, I'm putting all my money right now in my 401k. And what's your purpose in that 401k and that IRA? It's so that I can buy a house. Well, time out there. That's a retirement vehicle. And yeah, there's some exclusions where you can do it for a first-time home buyer, okay? Mm-hmm. But you need to be really careful that you don't tie your money up into a retirement account that you're going to need to buy a house or a home or things like that. So we try to make sure they understand that liquidity is underrated. Yeah, but Tom, I don't have to pay tax if I put it on the 401k, right? And you can't touch it till you're 59 and a half without paying tax and also sometimes paying a penalty. So you got to be careful with liquidity. Now, I think so. The younger people don't understand that they need some money for liquidity. Now, older people are like this because for years we used to get like 3%, 4% on those money market accounts. It floated along there when home loans were at 7 and 8% interest for decades. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden home loans went down about 2 or 3 decades ago to all the way down to some people were getting them in just below 2% on 30-year home loans. And so people were coming in and they said, I don't see the value of having 3 to 6 months of liquidity in an emergency fund. I'm here to tell you that you need to see the value in having an emergency fund because whether you are 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, or 75, stuff happens in your life and you're going to need 3 to 6 months from time to time.
Yep.
And you need that to be in something liquid. You need to be able to get a hold of it. Now, for those of you who are in the middle, I've talked to the 25-year-olds and the 65-year-olds who are retiring. But if you're 45 years old and you say, well, wait a minute, 3 to 6 months of what we have for income in a liquidity-based account where we can get our hands on it, that's exactly what I'm saying. You say, when do I need 3 months? Well, let's say you're married or you're single and you've got a real solid job making really good income and it's stable. It's the same every single time. Maybe you need 3 months, all right? But when do you need 6 months? If there's only one income earner in the family, and that means all of you who are single, there's one income earner in the family, or if your pay is based on commission. In some months it's way high, and some months it's way low, and it's not necessarily a stream of steady income. That's when I think you need up to 6 months of money in liquidity in an emergency fund that you can get your hands on when you need it without having to pay a penalty. So the coaching on liquidity is something that people, you're right, it's underrated by most people, but you never need that emergency fund until
you need it. Yeah.
You need it and you have to have it. So that's why it needs to be there.
Yeah, and liquidity has changed through the years too. I think what we consider liquid now is not just being able to walk into the bank and then walk back out with something. I mean, in most instances, being able to access money in a week, 3 to 5 days, is probably considered liquid at this point.
Yeah,
right?
we put some of that money sometimes in a brokerage account, and it's in the market. It could go up, it could go down, but it's available, as you said, in about 3 to 5 days in a direct deposit into your account from whatever you're invested in. That's still liquidity.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times you can fix, roofs or whatever the case might be with that kind of thing. Walking in and walking out with cash, not quite the issue that it used to be, unless somebody's got your cat held hostage for ransom and they want money for your cat or something. But I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Right.
I got you.
So, all right. So predictability is second on my list here, Tom. Now, certainly, predictability, I could see that being underrated because even though we all want it, we maybe don't think about getting it structured in the way we should because we like predictability, especially with our money. We're concerned with that, right?
I've got a really good friend. I mention him often on this program, 𝗕𝗏𝗃. He wrote the Automatic Millionaire, 13 New York Times bestsellers. And he says, when you get to retirement, you want your portfolio to be boring.
Yeah.
He said, you want it to put you to sleep at night because he says there's enough things that will keep you awake at night when you get to retirement. And all of you who are in retirement and you're that age, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You need something predictable, particularly on one side. There's two sides of a retirement plan. There's the income, where you put something in a more secure, predictable portfolio, and that could be an annuity, it could be CDs if they're paying the right amount, it could be a structured dividend-paying stock group, but you need that income to be more predictable than you do your portfolio, we'll call it at large. You need that portfolio at large to grow. That's your play money, that's your play check, but you need that income aspect of your portfolio to be very, very predictable. Because you don't want to just get a percentage off of it like many of the big box firms say, just take 4% a year. Well, what if you're down 50%? You're down to 2% of what it was last year. So you got to have more of a predictability when it comes to the income side, and you can have more of putting it out there at risk on the portfolio side. And if you've never told your money to address each of those two sides, you might be just in an investment account that's a hope account for retirement rather than really having a blueprint that says this is where our income's coming from and this is where our play money's coming from to enjoy in retirement. That's what we hold out, that you need a retirement blueprint.
And you can get yours at 855-526-1600, 855-526-1600. No cost, no obligation, no reason not to pick up the phone and reach out to Tom's team today at 855-526-1600 because maybe, Tom, you want a little simplicity. That's my last one on the underrated here. Somebody might disagree with us on this. They're like, no, simplicity is not underrated. I think it's, we need to, but if you think about it it really is. Like, our life is so complicated anymore in today's society that the more simplified we can find things or make things, I think the happier and better chance we have of following through with them. There's
a whole group of financial professionals who are in my field that seem to try to make things as complex as possible. And they do that in order to really convince people that you're pretty helpless without me. You need me.
And look how smart I am.
Yeah. And I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I trained for 2 days with one of those organizations when I was first starting 30 years ago. And I walked out of it after a day and a half. I went the first day and I walked the first half of the second day. And they literally told it, look, this is exactly quote, you don't want to educate your clients, because then they'll challenge you, okay? But it's your money. The way we look at it at Mosley Wealth Management, this is your money. It's everything you've worked for from the time you were 25, 30, when you started saving and you've been able to amass all of that money. You worked hard for that money. And it's still your money. You don't get it turned over to the financial advisor and it's their money then. It's still your money.
That's right.
It's everything you've worked for up until retirement. And Mark, it's everything all these people have worked that they're going to live off of the rest of their retirement. So you need to understand it. Now I don't know how my watch works, but I know how to tell time and I know what it's doing for me, okay? And so you don't need to know all of the algorithms that are used and all of the different derivatives that might be used in your investments, but you need to at least understand what that investment is doing for you. And that's simplicity.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
What do you have and why do you have it, right?
Exactly. I mean, sometimes I get in trouble on this show with my compliance people. And sometimes it's
So do I.
because I try to make things too simple for people and try to explain it to them, if you understand what I'm saying. But I try to break those complex things down so people can understand them. And I think that you need to be able, if you're going to put $500,000, $750,000, $1 million, $2 million, you name your amount. If you're going to put that money into an investment and trust that investment or that blueprint to last for as long as you do, you need to understand it. It needs to be simple enough that you can understand it. I told that to a client one time and they said, well, that's good because I've got a very simple mind. I don't think that person had a simple mind at all. I just think you need to be able to comprehend what somebody's doing with the different parts of your money. We mentioned earlier about the idea of income and the idea of investments. And some of you, that struck a chord because you just got all of yours in one pot. You've just got in there and it's in the market and it's invested. And maybe your advisor says when it goes down, hey, don't worry about it, it'll come back. Well, historically it has, but
Sure.
we're not always sure that history is going to pan out again the same way.
Or how long are you going to be on this rock, right?
That's exactly right. And they'll say, well, you hadn't lost anything until you sell it. That's true. But in retirement, you're selling a little bit of it every month if you're drawing from it $3,000, $2,500 to supplement your Social Security and other things. So you are selling something a little bit at a time. It's a slow death if you're down. Because you're down, you're having to buy more units out of there. It's so much simpler just to say, we're going to take X amount of dollars and we're going to set that aside. That's going to address our income for the rest of our life. And it should do it. If not, we can make some adjustments through the years. That's why you set it and don't forget it. You set it and you review it every single year. That's what a blueprint does for you, okay? But you've addressed the income. Then you know how much when you're 65 years old you can spend when you go to Europe or spend when you go to Fiji. Can we stay in a hotel and drive to the beach, or can we stay out in a hut over the beach when I go to Fiji, if you understand what I'm saying? So that's why you need a blueprint. You need to simply tell your people, I know what that money is doing and I know what that money's doing. It doesn't need to be in some super complex new thing that's just come out. Also, you need to ask people when they're doing your investments, how long has that fund been in operation? Because, the next best thing, they're not going to say, hey, we just invented this thing and it really stinks, so let's put some people's money in it. Nobody's ever going to say that, okay? They're going to put their money into new things because they need to fund those things. I like to back off with my people and their money and put it into things that are tried and proven through the years rather than just jump on the next greatest thing. So simplicity, yeah, it needs to be simple, but you need to understand the simplicity of it and how it works.
Yeah, because you're more likely to follow through with it. You're more likely to stay engaged with it and get where you need to be for your retirement journey. So to get your complimentary written retirement blueprint to help you on your way, then make sure you reach out to the team at Moseley Wealth Management at 855-526-1600 for your complimentary written retirement blueprint. 855-526-1600 or find them online at moseleywealthmanagement.com. That's moseleywealthmanagement.com. This is Ease Into Retirement, and there's more to come right after this. Back here for more of Ease Into Retirement with Tom Moseley from Moseley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. Find them online at moseleywealthmanagement.com. That's Moseley, M-O-S-L-E-Y, wealthmanagement.com. to check out the tools, tips, and resources that they have available for you. You might also click on the Seminars tab to see about some upcoming events all around the area. Check out the upcoming events, for the next couple of weeks. As Tom said, RSVP that way, or just call the number and let them know you'd like to attend as well, 855-526-1600. They'll get you all squared away. 855-526-1600. Same number to call if you want to skip the seminars or events and just get into an office and sit down and start talking. 855-526-1600 for your complimentary written retirement blueprint. All right, my friend, and maybe one of those conversation pieces that people want to have, and it's certainly been a buzzword or a buzz phrase and very popular the last couple of years, is conversations around Roth conversions. Certainly very intriguing to a lot of people and can be a great strategy, in fact, for a lot of people. So let's talk about that concept a little bit. I guess explain what it is and why it might be worth considering.
Well, when you start talking about Roth, I mean, they came into existence in like 1997, 1998, just less than 30 years ago. Most of you have been saving for retirement if you are close to retirement for longer than that period, so you weren't aware of those things. And you say, some people come in, Mark, and they say, I wish I'd have gotten in a Roth when I first started in 1980. Well, guess what? They didn't exist back then.
Senator Roth hadn't made that suggestion yet.
Not made that suggestion. Now, what a Roth is, a regular IRA or a 401k, you put money into that at limited amounts in the IRA and bigger amounts, but still limited in the 401ks. And I'm also talking about the 403bs and sometimes the 457s. There are limits as to what amount you can put into those things, and you don't pay tax on them that year. With a Roth, they came up with the idea of, instead of putting no tax when it goes in, and then when the money comes out of all of those accounts we just mentioned, you have to pay regular income tax on every penny that comes out. And you have to pay that tax forever as long as there's money in that account. With a Roth, you pay the tax before it goes into that account, and then you never, if you play by the rules the right way, there are some rules where you could step out of bounds and have to be penalized or pay a tax. Very few of those and very small, but the general idea is you never pay the tax on a Roth, and you're able to take that money out in retirement, and it's all your money. People come to me sometimes and they say, well, I've got $1 million in my IRA. And I jokingly sometimes say to them, oh, it's not all your money. And they look at me like, oh, you're going to steal it? Somebody stole it? What happened? Well, from the very get-go, you put the money into there and you knew that when you pulled it out, Uncle Sam is going to have his portion of it, depending on your tax bracket. So with a regular IRA or a 401k, no tax when it goes in, but full income tax when it comes out. With a Roth, the general idea, unless you break the rules, is you put the money in, you pay the tax as it goes in, but you never pay the tax on it again. And it wasn't that much of a popular thing until like 5 years ago, because you could pass along that IRA to your heirs. Your spouse can get the full amount and have access to the full amount. But if you leave it to your children up until 2020, if you leave it before then, 2019 and before, they could do what was called a stretch IRA, and they could stretch that money over their entire lifetime and take a little piddly amount every year. And there used to be a book called, Stretch Your IRA into a Retirement, Boom, because it can be just great for your kids. With the Secure Act, at the end of 2019, starting in 2020, now your heirs have to take that money out over 10 years. Not your spouse, but your heirs. So now it forces them. Many times people pass away in their early 80s or their 80s and they leave it to their 50-year-old children. Their 50-year-old children are in the prime of their life. And so if they inherit a $1 million IRA and they have to take it all out over 10 years, look at what it does to their tax bracket. It really drives them higher. And so people are saying, how can I get that into a Roth? That's where we get finally to your question, Mark. That's what a Roth conversion is. You take and you go ahead now with our relatively low tax rates situation that we're in right now in our country, and they're locked in through 2028 with the bill that was passed last July. You lock in those rates, you pay extra tax now, you convert that amount of money into a Roth, and if you play by the rules the right way, you never have to pay tax on it again as long as you don't break those one or two little rules. So that's what a Roth conversion is, and that's why it's worth considering it, because of the tax advantages it will give you in the future. If I look at $1 million in an IRA, it's not all your money. If I look at $1 million in a Roth IRA and you take it out the right way, every single penny of that money is your money.
Yeah, and Tom, I think between the tax code changes, the TCJA in 2017, the Secure Act, that you're talking about 1.0 there, and the continuation of the TCJA to a degree with the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill, those low tax rates and the removal of the stretch has just made it way more popular the last number of years, right? So certainly something that people have been talking about. A lot of high income earners, get confused by it because they think they're priced out of it. Is this helpful? Is this a great tool for those? Is there a way to deal with that if you are making too much?
Well, a high income earner may be and likely will be out of being able to contribute to a Roth IRA. Now, I notice the word I said, contribute, because there are amounts that you can contribute, $7,000 or $8,000 a year, depending on the year, that you can put into an IRA, and if you qualify for it, into a Roth IRA. But if you are a high income earner, I just this past week sat with a couple that were told for years that oh no, you're not eligible to convert into a Roth IRA. That's wrong, because the word is not contribute, the word is convert.
Right.
The money that's in your IRA or your 401k, you can convert any amount of money from an IRA to a Roth that you're willing to pay the tax on. Now, what's that going to do to you? As we talked about, it's going to come out as regular income, because you got to pay the tax. There's no way to not pay the tax getting from an IRA to a Roth IRA.
Uncle Sam wants their money regardless, right?
Yeah. I had a client came in one time, a prospect came in, and they said in almost a hushed tone, they said, I talked to a guy, I went to his seminar, and I talked to a guy here in Orange County, and he told me if I would let him manage my money, he would move it about 3 years in a row, and after about 3 years, he would move it into a plan where I wouldn't have to pay tax on it, and I never have to pay tax on it. I was really quick on my feet that day, and I said, I know what that plan is called. And she looked at me and she said, really? There's a plan like that? I said, yeah, it's called the penitentiary plan, okay? If you do that, you're going to go to the penitentiary. So we're not talking about avoiding tax on the IRA. You've got to pay the tax. But ultra high income earners, whereas they can't contribute maybe because they make too much money to contribute to a regular IRA, they can convert any amount they're willing to pay the tax on to a Roth IRA, and then playing by the rules, they never pay the tax on it
And
again.
I think that's the confusion, right, Tom? Because sometimes people go, oh, well, I keep hearing about a tax-free retirement or this, that, or the other. And it's like, look, if you've got money in a 401k, let's just say you got $1 million in a workplace plan, the government wants their cut. By moving it to a Roth, you're still paying the taxes. You're just eliminating the RMDs from the required minimum distribution from your 401k, because the Roth account at this time does not have that, right? And is that the confusion, I think, for a lot of people? They hear that kind of strategy and they think that, oh, I'm avoiding it totally.
Yeah, I wish the people who advertise tax-free, 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 and they talk about Roth conversions had the compliance people, the great compliance people that we have. Because from a compliance standpoint, to your point, Mark, there's no way for an IRA to be tax-free. You've got to pay the tax, and you might put it into a Roth IRA by paying the tax, then it becomes tax-free if you play by the rules.
Correct.
So to your point, that is the key. You will pay the tax on it. Anybody that tells you, like this lady, I won't have to pay the tax on it, that's a penitentiary plan, and you don't want that plan.
Well, since we had music going on in the last segment, Tom, that's the Beatles and Taxman, right? So you're going to have to deal with the Taxman, right?
Yep.
Is that what I just highlighted? Is that one of the big common mistakes that you see around the Roth conversion conversation? And if so, are there any others?
Well, the confusion is a lot of big investment companies don't want to do Roth conversions. And I'll tell you why. Just real simple here. If you've got $100,000 in a regular IRA and you're working with the big box firms, the blank investment firms, you can name them. They all call themselves an investment firm. They're into investments. They're not into financial planning really for you, for what's in the situation, what's best for you. So you've got $100,000 with them and it's in an IRA. They want to leave it there, because if you convert that over and you're in a 22% tax bracket, you convert that over, you pay the tax, you're down to $78,000. We're talking only federal here, not state tax. Mm-hmm. So you're down to $78,000. Well, wait a minute. The big box firm gets to bill you on $100,000 if it's in the IRA, and they only get to bill you on $78,000 when it's in the Roth IRA. That's not a good deal. For whom? It's not a good deal for the big box firms. So that's why they say, well, we don't do Roth conversions. If your people don't do Roth conversions, you at least need to come talk to us and see if a Roth conversion could be to your advantage. Because if it is, and your company's just not not doing it because it's not in their best interest, you need to get away from them anyway because they're doing what's in their best interest and not what's in your best interest.
Yeah, so doing what's in your best interest is, obviously paramount, and it's what we all want to do. And that's why so many places, like Tom and his team, they offer these consultations and conversations to see if they're the right fit for you. So find out if they're a good fit by coming in for a consultation and a chat. Get that retirement blueprint underway. No cost or obligation at 855-526-1600 in one of their 5 locations. Sit down, have that chat, have that conversation, and talk about the pain points that frustrate you or worry you, and maybe the Roth conversation is one of those pain points. 855-526-1600. Again, 855-526-1600, or find them online at 𝗬𝗠lywealthmanagement.com. And don't forget to click on the seminars tab and maybe come out to one of the upcoming events that's going to be in your area. 𝗬𝗠lywealthmanagement.com or 855-526-1600. This is Ease Into Retirement. We'll be right back.
You've heard the saying, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. In retirement, taxes can eat away at what you've worked so hard to save. That's why 𝗬𝗠ly Wealth Management offers you a complimentary retirement blueprint designed to help you keep more of what's yours. Don't wait. Call 855-526-1600 now for your personalized retirement blueprint. That's 855-526-1600.
I'm back here for the final segment of Ease Into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at 𝗬𝗠ly Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. We're going to take some email questions, as we tend to do, from listeners like yourself all around the area. And if you've got questions or concerns you'd like to drop a line into the team or the program or whatever the case is, find them online at 𝗬𝗠lywealthmanagement.com. There's a wealth of resources there you can check out as well. Again, 𝗬𝗠lywealthmanagement.com. You can click on the seminars tab, check out some upcoming events, get on the calendar, come in for a consultation, send an email, whatever you want to do, but reach out to the team at 𝗬𝗠lywealthmanagement.com or just call them, 855-526-1600, and get your questions asked and answered with a retirement blueprint conversation, that complimentary written retirement blueprint, 855-526-1600. All right, Tom, let's see if we can help out Jacob in Carlsbad. He says, I'm 44 and I feel like I can do everything on my own with my Fidelity account, but I know I'm going to want some extra guidance when it comes to retirement. When should I start moving towards a financial professional and more of a strategic plan than the DIY approach?
Hey, Jacob, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for sending this question in. It is a great question.
It is,
and it's one of the reasons we offer a complimentary evaluation. Jacob, you'd be surprised how many 44, 45, 46-year-olds are wise enough to come in and meet with a financial planner. You think that you're doing okay on your own with your Fidelity account. Why not get some confirmation for that, okay? It would be like if I were going to travel, I know how to get to Dallas. So let's say I was going to travel from here to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Well, the first thing I would need to do, since I've been in that area a couple of times, but I've never traveled as much as I've traveled from here to Dallas, I would need to get a map. Now, at what point would you suggest I get the map? I don't know, Tom. Get
Halfway.
in the car and, drive northeast for 1,000 miles and see where you're at, and then grab a map. No, you would want to get a map, or you wouldn't go buy a map like we used to do when we were kids, but you would get on your phone and you would say, okay, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and you'd Google it and you'd push that little button and it would say, hey, go up the 15 freeway and go past Vegas and go that way. That's how you would probably, you want to take the scenic route, you probably want to go through eastern Utah, but I don't want to get sidetracked by all of that. But what I'm saying is you would get the directions from the get-go, from the start.
As soon as possible, yeah.
As soon as possible. Now, does that mean you're going to start working with a financial advisor? Does that mean we think you're going to start working with us? No, not unless you see something you like. But you need to do that check-in. You need to say, am I saving the right way? Am I saving the right amount? You need to, at this point in your life, go through a budget and say, what do I need to save so that I'll be able to provide myself that much money in income? Oh, Tom, when I get to retirement, I might not need as much as, well, most people do. They need as much as they do. Am I on track? Okay. That's when you really should check in. When else should you check in? If you're 5 years away or less than 5 years away from retirement, you're in the red zone. You're in that area where, like in football, when I used to coach football, you got inside the 20-yard line. When I coached football in Texas, when you got inside the 20-yard line, if you were in the playoffs, that counted as what we called a penetration. You got inside that red zone. And there were games we won when the score was tied at the end of the game. They didn't play overtime. They said, you got inside the 23 times, you got inside the 22 times, you win because 3-2 on penetrations.
Wow. Interesting.
So,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So when you get in that red zone, why? That's a crucial time. When you get within 5 years of retiring, you need to maybe start checking out a financial advisor because you're saving in your Fidelity account. Growth is your issue. It's going to turn completely around when you retire, and withdrawal rate is going to be your issue. Now, when you get to the last year, when you get to particularly the last 6 months, you say, Tom, you sound like you know what you're talking about. I've done this for 31 years, okay? When you get to the last year and you're about to walk out the door of a company, you need to be coached on what are the good things that you need to maybe take with you from that company plan. Do you need life insurance? I mean, did you have that little heart episode? Maybe you need life insurance. You might not be able to qualify for a standalone policy, but the portable policy that you have at work, that's the key word, portable. Is it portable? Can you take it with you into retirement and turn that group policy that's already in effect for you? Can you just start paying the premiums and then you take it with you and it stay with you the rest of your life? My health insurance, I'm 63 and I'm retiring. Well, what are you going to do for health coverage until you get to be 65? Do I go get a standalone policy or do I COBRA where you might be able to get better coverage and lower deductibles depending on your plan? A lot of coaching goes on in that final 6 months, 3 months that you need an advisor then. And then people don't realize this, but you really need an advisor the first year you're in retirement big time because you thought that's going to be enough money to spend. You thought that's what you were going to do. You didn't realize the emotional impact that retiring and not having your social network was going to be. You didn't realize that you were starting a whole new life. And if you're working with a good financial planner, they do, because we've been through it with people. So there are so many things and so many reasons. Now at 44, Jacob, when you're 5 years away from retirement, in that final year especially, and in that first year especially, and then there's one more. When you're 5, 10, 15 years going into retirement, every single year, not every 5 years, but every single year at least, you need to have that checkup to make sure you're on track and make sure you're not going to run out of money no matter how long God gives you here on this earth. You're not going to run out of money. So do you need a financial advisor? Not one to take over your financial account right now at Fidelity necessarily, Jacob, but one just to point you in the right direction, to give you the map for where you're going to go in 15 or 20 years so you don't waste time getting there and you go directly there.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Jacob, though, for thinking about it at 44. I think most of us wait till 50 at least, at the earliest a lot of times. We kind of treat 50 like I always joke, that's the unofficial kickoff to retirement, kind of like Memorial Day is the unofficial kickoff to summer. We get to 50 and go, maybe I better get serious about this. So it's good that he's at least thinking in that direction. So great, great response there, Tom, on this question, and we certainly appreciate it. 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. All right, Tom, real quick, let's see if we can do this one. In Ontario is Frida. She says, I just got a letter saying I'm about to get a rate hike on my long-term care insurance policies. Is that a sign to look for a new policy, or is it just common practice?
It's common practice. Easy answer. A new policy is going to be based on your age, and you might have poor health right now. Your health might not be in as good a position it was when you got the original policy, or you might have gotten a policy at work and just portabilized it to yourself when you went into retirement. That's going to be generally, you check the numbers, And you might find out that, don't listen to an advisor in many cases, because that advisor is not going to make any money unless you buy a new policy.
Right.
So they see every reason in the world for you to buy a new policy. But you need to compare what a new one will cost versus that, what the benefits of the new ones are versus the one that you've got. You need to look at some alternatives. There are some hybrid annuities that you can put the money in there. Sometimes they'll double, not for long-term care. Not for long-term care, but if you hit 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, there are some life insurance policies that pass money along tax-free to your kids if you don't need the long-term care, and that money just sits there and then it passes to your kids as a life insurance policy. There are options. I've always told people, Frida, generally what you've got right now, instead of replacing that policy, it's good for the advisor, probably not good for the person. You have to check it out and compare.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you so much for the questions this week. We always appreciate them. Always good stuff. And at the end of the day, if you need some help, take some action for yourself and sit down with a qualified professional like Tom's team at Mosley Wealth Management and get your numbers ran. Get a retirement blueprint, a strategy for your unique and specific situation. 855-526-1600, your number to call. 855-526-1600 to speak with the team at Mosley Wealth Management, or again, find them online at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's going to do it for us this week here on Ease Into Retirement. For Tom Mosley, I'm your host, Mark Killian. We'll see you next time.
Mosley Wealth Management is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management, Inc., MWM. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership. License number 0K76766. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal, and any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Mosley Wealth Management, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Wealth Management. This radio show is a paid placement.